Welcome back to my Cities Skylines 2 Let's Play series. In episode 1, we met James Smith. He's a billionaire and the founder of Stanford. When doing so, he realized that city planning is a lot of work. So what he did was, like any billionaire, he decided to hire a city planner named Frank Abagnale. The only request James Smith had to Frank was, please remove all the industrial area off the island and across the river. So Frank's first order of business was he moved the coal power plant across the river. Next, Frank Abagnale went to James Smith and said, hey, I need $500,000 to buy tiles and to make sure that we have land in a residential area. And then we also have to expand our industrial area. So we're buying tiles on both the residential island side and the future industrial side. Now the residential side, it costs $210,000. Then the industrial side, weirdly enough, it costs about $240,000, which honestly is kind of weird that some of the land value is different. So now that we have the land, we have the land available to expand. Next, we need to go into our developmental points and unlock large roads and intersections. And I'm going to show you exactly why in a few minutes. Before we get out of the dev points or the developmental area, we need to unlock trains and trams. So the whole point of this build is we're going to create a massive amount of industry. Then we're going to create a massive amount of residential because we're going to need people to work in our residential area, work in our industrial area. So the third problem that Frank Abagnale encountered was this ugly three-way intersection. Now, right now it works fine because we have a city population of 2,191, but let's do some future proofing. So what we're doing is we are demolishing that lovely intersection. Yeah, I know it's lovely because it's honestly generic and every Cities Skylines one city had it. But what we're gonna do next is the four-way cloverleaf is probably the best interchange to handle this massive amount of traffic. So now that we have everything installed, we have our electricity, we have our train lines still connected and whatnot, let's get started with our expansion project. So our fourth item of business is we're gonna create a train depot and we're gonna try to place it along over here. Now, obviously we have power lines in the way, so we do have to remove those, but in your mind, you're gonna think, this is building an industrial area. Why are we building trains? That's a great question. The reason why we are building trains first is A, we need to make sure that the tracks for the cargo train station and passenger train station don't get completely destroyed by roads. And then next, cargo trains can haul out thousands of pounds of goods. And what's really great about that is if you hauled out via train, you will have less traffic and less trucks on your highway. So what we're getting into right here is we need to connect up the train line. So you can see here, there's two spots to this train depot that you have to make sure are completely connected. Now I'm just showing you a brief and quick tutorial of it, but I'm just gonna speed it up so you don't have to see everything. And it just, obviously when you're adding these train tracks, just be careful. Make sure they're connected up to your train tracks and your main land, and make sure you leave a U-turn. In Cities Skylines 2, everything needs to be connected forward and back. And as you can see there, that there's two little U-turns on the thing. Now, the train depot itself, you're able to add extra tracks. The extra tracks increase the train capacity by 5 extra vehicles. Then also you can add a maintenance hall, which obviously your trains will get maintained at a higher and faster pace. Okay, we have the trains in place. What we need to do next is we need to expand, or well, in this case, we actually have to create our own industrial area. So what I'm doing over here is I'm adding a very quick highway entrance. And if you want to copy this, honestly, it's super simple. All you have to do is create a medium-sized road, then grab the one-way roads and just add them in and out of the highway on and off ramp. So what I decided to do was I went out to about 460 on each way. So it's kind of equal distance. So it doesn't look like, you know, one side is too long, one side is too short. So we kept it at equal distance of $460. Now that's not units, that's dollars, because using the Cities Skylines 2 road tool, you can see the 84 meter mark, but sometimes it's okay. You know what? If you have the distance and money, it's whatever works for you when using this new Cities Skylines 2 road tool. So now that we have that in place, now we do have a slight diagonal. So it is going to look a little bit funky, but this is probably the easiest and best way to create a Cities Skylines entrance. I'm just being honest with you, like this is probably the simplest version of a highway on and off ramp. Now, as time goes on, we might have to upgrade some of these lanes, but for the time being, we'll just kind of go with it, honestly. Like, I think this will all turn out okay ultimately and work out great, but you know, upgrades do come as your city gets bigger. When you are creating your own custom highway intersection, what you do need to make sure is all of your roads are going the correct way. And in Cities Skylines 2, we know that that is not the easiest task in the world. So now let's finally start to create our industrial area. So what I want to do is I want to use that medium-sized road, make sure it is straight at a 90-degree angle. And this is going to be our main arterial road of our industrial area. And what I mean by that is we want all of the traffic flow to go to and from this main road. So all of our, all of our industrial buildings and stuff like that will basically be going through this main road. Okay, so what we want to do next is I want to create a giant grid. Obviously, the best way to create industry in Cities Skylines 2 is a grid. I mean, I know we know that. I understand that grids aren't the sexiest thing to look at when playing Cities Skylines 2, but when you're building a very massive industrial area, you need functionality over looks every single time you're building it. So what I'm trying to do with the medium-sized road is I'm trying to create a giant rectangle, and that is the giant rectangle of medium-sized roads is where we're trying to put all of our industry. Now, once we have that rectangular box in place, I would like to place down a cargo train station as quickly as possible. The reason behind that is we, as a builders, and when you're planning your Cities Skylines city, train tracks do get in the way so very, very, very often. So the reason why I wanted to build that now is I wanted to lay down the tracks and make sure we don't build a ton of roads over it or nearby and whatnot. So anyways, what I'm doing now is I'm preparing the land for the cargo train station. I flatten the terrain and I soften the coastline. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to create a one-way road in and out of our cargo train station. The reason behind that is in Cities Skylines 2, we don't have TMPE traffic manager. So by adding a one-way road, we're enabling cars to only go in basically go in and out one single direction. Now you can see here on the cargo train station is you can only go one way in and out of this cargo train station. Also, you can add extra tracks and a storage warehouse. The extra tracks is obviously to enable more trains to join the car or to be in the cargo train station. And then the storage is obviously, well, extra storage. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. So next, we have our cargo train station in place. What we want to do is we want to actually add and connect it up to our main train line. And you can see the main train line. The issue here, we do not have the Move It mod. And we do not have any other mods right now in Cities Skylines 2. So what I want to do is, well, we have to be very basic. We have to go over. We're going to go over the highway by a slight angle of 91 meters at a 9.3 degree incline. Now that we have that incline in place, what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of a fork or a split in the road. And the reason behind that is, well, we want goods to go to the right and to the left. So basically what I mean by the right and left is that there are going to be cargo places that we can create cargo lines that go in and out of the map so we can import and export goods from other towns. So now that we have that in place, look how simple we kept this. Again, when you don't have mods in Cities Skylines 2, you honestly, I'm just being very honest with you, you really can't do much. Like, making it look nice, this is the best you can possibly do. I know City Planner does a really nice job, but just in general, like, we couldn't go under. If I had the Move It mod, I would move the highway lower and we would just go straight across with the trains. But in this situation, we can't do that yet here in Cities Skylines 2. But everything is so far connected for our cargo train station. Now let's just look. Everything okay. Everything is a-okay. What we're gonna do next is, I kind of mentioned this before, this will split. We connected our cargo train station. Now we can go to the right and create a cargo train line, and then we can complete the line. So we're importing and exporting goods in and out of the city. So we have a train line going to the right. Now we're gonna have a train line going to the left out of the city. So this is how you import and export goods using trains in Cities Skylines 2. Basically import and export cargo. We have 2 train lines completed, and as you can see here, we have 2 train lines. We have one that will be a red line, and then we're just looking at, there's 2 vehicles currently, that 9.5 kilometers and 2 stops. Then next, we're going to go over to the other cargo train line that went the opposite direction and make it a blue line. And there we go. We have our cargo train station created, but guess what? We have no cargo, which is unfortunate, which is kind of weird. So our next step, the ugly stepchild in the room, is this industrial area on our island, and we need to remove it. So when doing that is we have to come back over here and we want to create a very compact and gridded area in our City Skyline city. In order to fill this grid, what we'll do is we're going to use the grid tool that comes with City Skylines 2. And I feel like this tool works out really, really nicely. We can make it smaller, bigger, but I kind of like the way this tool kind of works. And we have 4 different ways that trucks can get in and out of our industrial area and go onto the main arterial road. What we'll do is we're gonna do the same thing on the opposite side, so we kind of mirror each other, because remember, this is a massive amount of industrial area that will be honestly used very well and make us a lot of money. So what I'm doing is right now is I'm connecting a few of the roads to our arterial road to make sure, again, we have trucks have the ability to get in and out of the industrial area, no problem. So this might lead to other things, but you know, we'll eventually see. Traffic wise, there is a huge question mark. But what we'll do next is I did fix up the coal power plant. I did make it more grid-like. It was slightly off and slanted. Also, when you are moving moving services across a river and across a bridge, make sure you don't forget to connect your services such as sewage and fresh water. And then obviously we have the coal power plant here, so electricity is not necessarily needed because it's, well, honestly, it's already connected. Duh. Anyways, now that we have that in place, we're going to keep going. This is our industrial massive expansion, and let's keep going. Now that we have our grids in place, what we need to do is remove all of our old industry, and we're going to do this in one fell swoop, and there it goes. Yep, it's all going to demolish itself. So you remove any of the the industrial yellow, and we're going to replace it over here. This might destroy our economy, but I don't think it will, because we're just going to replace it as fast as we got rid of it. So really nice start. I'm really happy with the way our industrial area is turning out. We do want to let some of that fill in, and eventually those you're going to see here, those industrial goods are eventually going to come over to our cargo train station. The next issue, the issue that's going to pop up is lack of workers, or lack of labor, excuse me. So when you're creating an industrial area, you need to get people in and out of work. And You know, instead of every single person driving, what we could do is we have trains, and we can create a passenger train line in our town of Stamford. And when Frank Abagnale took this project on, he was probably not thinking, well, we're going to create a cargo train station and we're going to create this, and that. And he didn't probably realize how big of a project this was going to be. So for over here, we demolished some of the grid. And what I'd like to build over here is the passenger train line, because this is actually a perfect spot because, well, we could put the train line underneath the actual interchange that we customly made, or we could put it over. We can decide as time goes on, but you can see here we have a clear path to and from the main train line, and then we have a straight path through the bridge. Or do we go over? Do we go under? How do we handle this situation? So now that we have the passenger train line, we're going to need to figure out where on earth can we put the passenger train line. So I see this straight line, and we demolished a lot of our industry. You can see here on the screen in front of you, all of it is gone but 2 buildings. It's like, what are those 2 straggler buildings even thinking? Like, why are they still there? Anyways, what we're gonna do next is I want to add a passenger line. So this passenger line will be close to our future build, which we're gonna do in this episode, but it's also close enough to our high school and our elementary schools where, you know what, a lot of people are going to end up taking this train line. And you know what, it's in a perfect spot, and I feel like we can line it up with the overall industry. Like, see the industry where we just demolished that? There we go. Let's place that right there. So we have a straight shot where it's going to look neat and organized, and it's not going to look bad at all. So there is the passenger. There's our second passenger train line. Wow. But we don't have anything connected, so I guess we really don't have trains yet. But I love that we could just shoot this train line straight out, and it's going to look good, and we're going to be very happy with the results. So let's start. And it's crazy how much is going to be done in this video with all of this massive expansion. So here we are. You can see here we are building, and I did not love that the train line was not straight out. And yeah, that really bugged me. So you can see here, I went back and replaced it. Now it's a lot straighter. So a lot of people, you could go over, but why can't you? Well, there is the cargo shipping is in the way of our train line in general. So I decided that would look like a really awkward bridge on top of that. So I decided to go underground and create a tunnel. Now you could say that I cheated, but honestly, I did not want that ugly bridge in the way. And yeah, I just did not care for that. So anyways, what I ended up doing was I connected up all of our train lines to the underground tunnel, and everything so far looking a-okay. You can see here all of our train little station areas are all connected, and it works out great. Now this is where things get complicated because, well, it's only connected to the inside part of our world and not the outside. Yep, it is a little weird. So we have to get to that in a couple seconds. So what we had to do was we had to go over and we had to go around our cloverleaf. I didn't want to show you the whole thing, but hey, everything is now connected passenger train wise. So what I did was I created a passenger train line to and from our industrial area so we can have people going to and from work. So again, the trains are necessary because we want them to take the train and not drive, which will create less traffic in our City Skyline city. And we know that traffic in City Skylines 2 can be a complete nightmare and a complete mess. All right, so we have one train line in place. We are going to add parking fees up to about $24. Then the passenger train line, we're going to make that green. And you can see here, we're going to call it industry train line, or we'll see what will ultimately create it because I am doing a voiceover, but we'll just name it industry and call it a day. There we go. So now we have cargo trains and passenger trains connected to our City Skyline city. So what I want to do over here is the same thing, move up those parking fees and make sure that everything is working properly at the given time. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just doing some fine tuning on some of our industrial area. We have a little bit of a demand for industry. I'm just going to fill that in really, really fast and just make it look nice. What I'm going to do next is I wanted to do some light. I know we don't have time for this, but light detailing to this part of our City Skylines industrial area. And the reason behind that is I added 2 parking lots and I wanted to add a couple parks. We all love small parks. Let's add 2 parks on the very ends of, right there and right there. We're going to add it at the very ends, and then we're going to try our best. So first and foremost, those original parking lots, they kind of like, we couldn't move that over, and they just kind of look like garbage when they're not equal distant, if that makes sense. So we're looking for symmetry, right? We're looking for symmetry. So we'll fix that later on. But what we'll do is the new fencing detailing in City Skylines 2. Do you know what that is? It is creating paths. And this is the most detailing you can do in this game, which is, 1, very sad, but B, also very sad because we have no props. It's kind of embarrassing, but I will add trees later on. And, like the size. Yeah, there we go. I am finally deleting it and making smaller parking lots. What we also want is, hey, if we do have people parking for their jobs, we want them to park there and eventually take a bus, which is coming, disclaimer, that is coming, take a bus or walk to your job. Please don't drive throughout the entire, industrial area and get involved with the trucks. That's exactly what we don't want. So far, so good. Our industrial area is not yet massive, but yet we're making progress. So what's next? All right, the next part, I kind of used the disclaimer nicely that we need buses around this town. And buses are probably the easiest form of transportation to build, and they also can go the most point-to-point destination-wise. What I mean by that is you can place a train station on any part of a road and connect it, ideally. Now, I'm not saying you can place it on, like on a main road, and that's a great idea, but technically you can place them wherever the heck you want. So here is the bus depot, and as you can see here, we have a few upgrades. You can upgrade them to electrical cars, and you can also add an extra garage for additional vehicles. Now, I do have the road maintenance vehicle and trash over here. I was heavily debating on whether we should actually move our trash to, this is sad. We would remove Trash Island. Wow, that would actually be a very sad day. But anyways, now that we have our bus stops in place, now that we have the bus depot in place, we're going to add a few different bus lines around our industrial area. So again, we're trying to get people to take the buses over driving. Now, again, if they absolutely have to drive, please park in the parking lots. That's all we hope and dream for. That sounds so stupid, but anyways. All right, so now that we have all of our bus shelters in place, what we need to do is create a bus line. So what I decided to do was I created a bus loop that went to and from the train station. Again, heavily trying to imply, hey, please use the bus line from the trains so you don't have to drive and you don't have to walk. So now that we have that one bus line in place, we can just call it simply just industry. Industry works. I mean, industry 1, there we go. How generic of a title could I possibly create? With this bus line, you can add different bus line colors. You can increase the price of the bus line, so $20. And you can see here we have 4 out of 9 vehicles. So now that we have that bus line in place, we're making a more, the best part is we're making a more efficient industrial area. So what I wanted to do was I also want to add a couple commercial districts just to make sure it's a little bit fancy. You know what I mean? Just making, we can't detail anymore because we added the fences already. So anyways, all right, on to the next thing. The next logical step is to add buses to our residential area. And as you can see here, this is not, we know this already, this is not our downtown where we're going to see the skyscrapers. So I feel like the next logical step would be to build a bus depot kind of in the middle of where a lot of our neighborhoods are going to be located. And I figured out that I would like to create a little bit of a transportation hub. So what I'm looking to do, well, I should say what I tried and failed to do was to fit the bus station within the grid. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to line up the bus station with the entrance of the train, a passenger train station. So there you go. You can see I lined it up. But the thing is I do not want to create all of that traffic on that one road. So what I decided to do was I added this auxiliary road where the buses can go off that main road so we don't create a ton of traffic. And there you go. Like, just place it down right there. It's $200,000. Holy cow, that is an expensive bus station in Cities Skylines too. So now that we have that in place, what I also want to put next to it is, all right, we're going to have a lot of people around this area because we're taking buses, we're taking trains. What I want them to do is park there. So what I'll do is I'll add a couple different parking lots to this area and we're going to try our best in a little bit to just detail it up as best as possible. Again, we can only do so much. But what I'd like to do, we're trying to get there. There you go. There you go. So we're adding the parks, we're adding the detailing. So we do have a couple parks that I just wanted to place down, and we'll place them down right there, which again, this might look a little wonky because, well, we have two different size parking lots, which at the time of building this, I honestly didn't even think about, which is kind of weird. If you think about it, those should not be like that. So now that we quickly detailed our transportation hub, I think once we add trees and a couple buildings, I think it will overall look really great. So we have this bus station. Now we need to add bus shelters or bus lines around our current industrial or our current residential area. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to add a bus shelter in front of our high school, our elementary school, and around our residential areas. Remember, again, we want people to take the bus instead of drive and create more traffic. So again, the goal, I guess, of this bus line is to try to funnel everybody to the bus depot, to the bus station, then from the bus station to the train. Now, in Cities Skylines 2, do we know if people will actually do that? Well, we're going to have to find out once this game starts up and as time goes on to see what form of transportation they decide to take to work. Are they going to take the fastest form of transportation, which it possibly could be driving, or the most efficient? We'll eventually see. So what I'm doing next is my second bus line is going to be to and from our industrial area. So in this way, hey, instead of just taking that route in our industrial area, we can take the bus to and from the bus station itself, and we're going to close out that circuit. And again, we're just trying to fully utilize our buses. And I think the buses are definitely one of the best forms of transportation. You can see here, we now have 3 lines of bus lines of transportation, and things are looking very, very good so far. So we did change one of the color lines. We have the purple or pinkish, I'm going to call it the pink line, which goes out to our town to industry. I think that is the best way to title it because technically it is literally the town to the industry or industrial area. Then our last one, or our top one, is the residential bus service, which goes all the way around our residential area and goes by our schools. So eventually, as time goes on, well, our transportation will get used. Now, just letting you know, we have 2,817 people. So now that we have our transportation in place, we have our industrial area in place, what do we need to do next? Well, you can see here, we have sky high demand for residential area. And when you're creating about 5,000 jobs, you're going to need about 5,000 employees to replace them. So what I started to do was I cut down a lot of trees and I started to lay out our new industrial area. So first order of business was I wanted to see this gap. This gap I kept there very specifically for a highway to go right over it and to go through it. And you can see here on the screen, we have a 4-way, 2-way highway. And I feel like that is the best bet and the best way to go. So what we'll do here is we'll grab that 4-way highway roads to, in and out. And it goes both directions. And what we'll do is we're going to feed it over the train lines and basically right next to our train station itself. So again, this is a highway road, which obviously in Cities Skylines 2 or in any country, I guess, the highway road will be much higher speed. But hey, we don't have TMPE traffic managers, so know what that means? That means we can't even set the speed. Anyways, all right, so what we're going to try to do here is bring the highway along and just kind of go right next to our train station and kind of put it parallel to the train station, which we did really nicely, and bring and drop that down as best as possible at a decent rate. So it's not too, it doesn't look fake that, it's like, oh, we went down, the decline is too much. We didn't do that. We had a nice 8% decline, which I felt was very safe and I felt like worked out very, very well. All right, so now that we have that down, what we need to do is bring over the road. And what I would like to do is, all right, we have our highway in place. We have everything in place over here. And we need to make sure that we're going to future-proof this highway, essentially. So what we need to do is bring this straight out. And I would like to bring the other highway road off to the right-hand side to kind of create a really nice right-hand turn. Obviously there, I overshot it a little bit. Yeah, when creating this, I overshot it a little bit. As you can see here, also, the highways do not have any zoning on them. That is also a disclaimer that not many people notice when playing Cities Skylines 2. So what I'm trying to do here is go over to the curved road and make a very nice curved road to the right. It was a 91-degree angle, which it looks fine. Just eyeballing it looks fine. So what we'll do next is eventually that's going to expand out. And obviously we all know that we want a downtown area in that direction. So that's going to be perfect. This area is going to be extremely mixed use. There's going to be a lot of low density, medium density. It's going to be mixed with a little bit of everything. We're not going for skyscrapers though. Just letting you know ahead of time. No skyscrapers in this part of the island. We also don't even have it. So I guess we really can't build it just as of right now. So what we're doing right now on the screen in front of you is we're doing some terraforming. This was not flat by any means, and as you can see here, it definitely was not flat. So what I did was I leveled the terrain to a certain height, and then I used the soften tool just to make it look a little bit nicer. As you can see here on the screen in front of you, we actually could not complete softening of the road because, well, if it goes across the other tile that you don't own, well, you can't terraform it. So that's actually new. That's something that we learned here in Cities Skylines 2. Okay, so what I would like to do next is, you guys know that I'm in love with grids. And I feel like the best way to do this is to use the actual grid tool again. This is 1.2 miles, by the way, 1.3 miles of road. So this is a massive, massive expansion costing us about $50,000. So when Frank Sinclair took on this project, he was probably like, I did not expect this. He probably did not expect this amount of expansion. But again, when you're creating a huge industrial area, you need people to work there. And if you don't have people working there, well, you're not going to have an industrial area. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few ways to get in and out of this residential area so that people aren't just completely and utterly stuck. What I'm doing next is, you're going to see over here, there's going to be an additional entrance in and out of our residential area, but I will get to that shortly. What I wanted to do next is, all right, we have all of these grid patterns, but we want to create an arterial road where we know that, all right, all of our main traffic, we want it to go towards like these roads themselves. So you're going to see here a lot of medium-sized roads are upgrading, and I'm doing this pretty quickly. And the funny part is I didn't even speed up this rendering, but I'm just upgrading these roads as quickly as possible. And again, the reason behind that is we want these arterial roads to take up a majority of the traffic, and we want to push cars towards this general direction. So we are going up, around, and all about. So you're going to see here, I'm going to speed up finally, but you're going to see here we have basically a crisscross grid of medium-sized roads so that, you know what, we can have decent traffic flow. What I wanted to do next was I wanted to create kind of like a city center. Again, this is not a downtown, just another reminder that this is not supposed to be a downtown location, but I wanted to still put something in the middle of this area. And when I was first creating this area, I honestly did not know what to do with it. So here's the final area, the final opening. You'll see eventually what I do with it and how creative I got with it. So now that we have all of this grid in place, what we're going to need is a lot of services. So what I decided to do was I added an elementary school. I added a high school because we all know that education is very important, but we also know that all of these schools are going to be filled in because this is mostly residential. So we know that. So we're adding our health services. So we're adding a medical clinic, a fire department, and a police department. So all of our services are in place. Okay, so far, so good. Actually, honestly, so far, so good is correct. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. It's very simple, but I like it a lot. So now what we need to do next is we need to make sure that, all right, we have all of our roads in place. I'm just upgrading to another medium-sized road just to make sure that traffic can be handled in a timely manner. And that's how important some of these road upgrades are. And that's what I'm doing. All right, so road-wise, we're all connected up. What I would like to do next is add transportation to this massive grid. So we know that there's going to be a lot of people living in these areas, and they're going to need to get in and out of, well, this massive grid. Now, for this episode, I understand I kind of created like a giant cul-de-sac for traffic, but that will definitely change next episode, not this one. But so what I decided to do was I added bus shelters all around this area where we could just take buses to and from anywhere and everywhere in this gridded area, and just to help, try to get less people to drive everywhere. That is what we were trying to go for, and I hope it works. That's what I'm hoping for. And right now, no pedestrian path can be found. So I guess I need to fix that. So how do you fix that? So if it can get to the bus station, it just can't come back out. So what I eventually decided to do was I realized I needed to add a road where the buses could actually go in and out of, the bus station. So I just added that road right there, and that actually fixed the problem. So I found that really interesting because we could get buses to there, but we couldn't get buses out of there. So that was kind of an interesting problem we entailed. But again, we're just adding these bus stations, and we're making sure that, there's other means of transportation around this massive part of our city that we're expanding. And trust me, guys, this expansion is going to be gigantic. Remember, we're at 2,870 people, residents as of right now, and we're also losing money right now. So that's also key. So yeah, our bus line is going to be called Newtown, and we are going to crank up the price to about $20. Okay, now that we have that in place, we also, if you do remember, we have trams. So ideally, trams would have been nice on Trash Island, but the tram station is freaking massive. So we're adding trams, and what we'll do for trams is pretty simple overall. If I'm going to be straight up honest with you, in Cities Skylines 2, or Cities Skylines 1, if you placed these trams on a road, they would take up so much traffic and it would be so annoying that In City Skylines 2, I just want to give them their own tram line and tram roads. So I don't have to even think about them being on the same road as the cars. So that's what I did here. I created a tram line that just basically went through our neighborhood. So then this way people, hey, it's also, if you have a tram line in your backyard, it's more accessible to you. So that's something also that you have to think about is I made it extremely accessible for people by placing down tram lines literally through like north and south and east to west of our city. And obviously with the new City Skylines 2 road tool, we can just cut right through some of these roads, which is fantastic. Now, will this work out really well? I'm going to say yes, it does, and it will be efficient. That is my bold prediction for these tram lines, and I think these tram lines will be used a lot. So just like every other transportation here in City Skylines 2, we do need to add tram lines. So what I'm going to try to do is I want to create 2 tram lines. One tram line that goes to the exterior of our grid, which you can see here, it's all of the outside grid. So it's kind of like going clockwise essentially, which kind of makes sense, going clockwise. So then what we'll do next is we're going to add a couple to the interior. So there's going to be an interior loop. And obviously I'm only adding the stations, but this is what I was thinking when I was placing them down. So now let's add those tram lines. So there you go. This is our exterior loop. There we go. Now, I guess in hindsight, since I'm doing a voiceover, in hindsight, I should have added a little bit of a tram like hub. But you know what? It's okay for the time being. It's going to work out really well. We want everything to fill in regardless. I think that's the key to this whole video is that we're going to have massive industrial expansion and massive residential expansion, and we just want everything to efficiently work. So now we have one tram line in place. We got the other tram line in place. Now look at that. We have trams, and you can see here the tram depot. You can upgrade the building for additional cars. And you can see here we have 10 vehicles. Well, right now 5 vehicles in use, but all of them will come out. Now, I guess in hindsight, I should have changed the color of each of these train lines, but you know what? It is what it is. We wanted people and we wanted to start expanding. I just got excited. Like essentially I forgot to add like the prices. So I guess in hindsight, I need to do more. I need to change the prices. Anyways, let's add that low density residential in City Skylines 2. They're going to eat it right up and it is going to fill in very, very quickly. We also have our medium row houses that are going to be filling in really, 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 really fast. You can see here, I want all the row houses to be in the same direction. So I did use the same method I used in episode 1, and I made sure that all the paths essentially are going the right way and kind of force them to go in a very similar direction. Okay, so now that we're back, we upgraded to a busy town. We have a few more developmental points as we were working on. So what I want to do next was unlock some large parks and some sports parks. And we did that. The reason why I wanted to add that was very simple. We needed to add parks to our, our massive gridded area. I guess earlier in the video, I did call it Newtown. So I guess I did add it to Newtown, which is this part of the city. And I'm just going through and trying to add some of these parks. Like this is a large park with a plaza. Try to add that to a different part, which is odd. I don't know how it didn't fit. But anyways, I'm just placing down parks in different parts of our town just to make them happy. There is no major detailing as of yet. We will get into that. Well, later on in the video, we will start to detail around some of those parks. But there we go. We have parks in place. We have residential in place. And we have our industry in place. Like everything is growing at a decent rate. And I'm very happy with our progress. Now, would you consider this massive industrial expansion? No, not yet. We haven't gotten there yet. We're just waiting for everything to sort of fill in because we have everything perfectly in place. So what we need to do next is we have these plots of land that are completely, we'll call them naked. You know, like if you're going to have an industrial area, at least have some sort of industry. I mean, that's the whole point of this industrial area, correct? So what I wanted to do was we have two industries that we have a few industries unlocked as of right now. We have pretty much all of them except for oil, but I wanted to add stone mining to the riverside part of our industrial area. Now you're going to say, well, why stone mining? Well, first and foremost, our coal power plant was definitely in the way, but why stone mining? Well, if you live near a river, you're going to know that it's filled with lots of rocks and lots of nutrients. And there could be some real rock mining that actually take place. So, hey, we're adding some realism to Stanford. Look at that. We're classing up our city. So in Cities Skylines 2, my a lot of issues with Cities Skylines 2, but you're going to see here, this is how you create an industry in Cities Skylines 2. You have to create a district by placing white points. And that's what we're doing right now. We're creating the district where all of the stone industry will actually take place. And if you're a fan of this, please hit that like button. If you're not a fan of it, please hit the like button regardless and comment how you feel about it. I personally wish that there's more customization to the rock mining and stone mining. And yeah, that's literally about it. There's not even auxiliary buildings and stuff like that. Like it's kind of weird. I'm going to be honest with you. But anyways, we're going to try to get all those points up as close as possible. There you go. And there is one stone mine, and there you go. That's how you add industry in Cities Skylines too. You know what the funny part? I know I'm laughing, but you know what the funny part is that's honestly the extent to it. And what's cool about the stone mining is they don't need any, you can place them anywhere and anywhere in your city. So it's not dependent on if you have like wheat or, you know, the forest industry and whatnot. So it's pretty cool how some of these industries, you can just plop them down and put them anywhere. So what I want to get into next is you saw that we have a lot of trees to the right. So eventually I believe we want to get into the forest industry itself. So there's our rock, there's our ore. There we go. We saw. So what I want to show you before we get into building anymore is I want to get into just the statistics. So you're going to see here, we have services. All right. We can make money on services, but then here's production. You can see here, we are at a deficit of a lot of different, every single material, we are at a deficit. So what we're going to do is we need to actually start building some of the industries, and right in front of us, yeah, smack dab in front of us, we have a lot of trees. I'm stating the obvious. So what I wanted to do over here was I wanted to add the forest industry in Cities Skylines 2. And I bought a few more tiles. Frank Abagnale just spent $200,000 on more tiles, which is a shed load of money. Anyways, so what we're going to do over here is this is going to be, we're moving our arterial road. We're just keeping it there. And we're going to move it kind of digging into the trees and digging into the forest. And eventually I do want to add a highway connection so that we don't have all the traffic as a cul-de-sac. Currently, it's all going to one spot. And eventually, it's going to bite us in the butt, but we're not there yet. We still only have 3,800 people, and we don't have that much industry. So for right now, we can live with basically a giant cul-de-sac. That's essentially what my city is right now. So here is our forest industry. I am going to eventually speed this up, but we need more industry to be filling itself in. So what we'll do over here with the dirt road is we're not going to grid it up. All right. I promise you, we will not grid up the forest industry. What we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of create like a branch itself. So we're creating the forest industry and we're using the branch. Wow. It does look like a branch from a tree. I kind of dig this. I kind of dig it. It does remind me of a tree. Anyway, so we're going to branch this off. And we're going to have, this is where we're going to place down all of our trees and all of our forest industry. And it's going to look really good. I actually like this organic look a lot better than the grids. But the problem is in industry, you want grids. And when you're creating like residential or whatever else. Like you pretty much want grids in a downtown area, and you don't want this like platonic look, essentially. What I mean, like the very natural look. Now here is how you build the forest industry. Again, I'm going to go slow for this, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to place all of these forest districts, and I wanted them to go kind of inside the little, I'm just saying little, but I wanted to place them inside the roads and outside the roads. So it kind of looked like, an orchard of some sort, if just trying my best. But you can see here, I'm kind of struggling with the idea. Anyways, everything is going to be sped up, but you're going to see here, we're going to create at least 5 or 6 of these forest industries. And the problem with forest industry, just like the stone mining, is it doesn't really have any vehicles roaming around. Like you really can't tell that that's the forest industry. And yeah, again, not great, but whatever. It is what it is. But now you can see here, we have stone industry going and we have forest industry going. So that is our massive industry is growing, and we're going at a good pace. Now everything is not filling in and is not filled in correctly, but it's going to keep going. We have places to go and people to see, and eventually all of this is going to fill in. So one of the next things we wanted to do was to get more people and to get more industry. You're going to see here, we unlocked a few different things. We already know we unlocked the parks and recreation and stuff like that. That's old news. We already added that stuff. But what I want to focus on really quick for one of the last things we're going to build is, well, right now that is the post office. And I didn't realize it until I clicked the tab over. Is we want to add internet and Wi-Fi to our city. Now, the reason why you're going to be like, well, why are you adding this to your city? Well, this will increase the ability for people to want to move here, increase the desirability, I should say, if you have good Wi-Fi service and cell phone service in your city. We want people to move here. You can see here, we only have 4,209 people, and our massive industrial area is going to be around 5,000. So that's the problem. Right now, if we're going to have an additional 5,000 jobs, we're going to need an additional 5,000 people living here. So we need to make it as desirable as possible. So that's why earlier I added the parks, and now I'm adding communications and Wi-Fi to our city, which ultimately does work out great. And you can see here, all of the green means it has really good and strong. It's like a cell phone tower, I guess, if you want to call it that. That's pretty much what it is. So essentially we have cell phone service all around our city. So now let's fast forward. Here is the end result of our massive industrial expansion. And as you can see here, we did add some livestock farms, which you could add those anywhere in your Cities Skylines city. And as you can see here, all of our industrial area filled in really nicely. Our stone mines still suck. Let's be honest here. Our stone mines don't have any vehicles coming out of them, but you can see here, I also added sewage. I mean, it made sense. If we have an industrial area, might as well add gross sewage to it and let it go down the stream. So we added sewage to it, so that looks really good. I love how all of our depots also kind of blend in really nicely. I did add this huge and beautiful gas power plant. Our coal power plant was completely overloaded by the time everything filled in. So this was absolutely necessary. We have more than enough electricity. We are selling a lot of electricity. And as you can see here, massive industry expansion. We have 5,073 jobs. Remember earlier in the video, I said we're gonna have 5,000 jobs. Well, we have 5,073 and everything filled in really, really nicely. There you go. Wow. We need more jobs to actually fill in. We actually need more of a population, but for the time being, it worked out really great. And you can see here, we still have a huge demand for residential, but you can see here, we're making a lot of money. I think that's also one of the key parts of this is our city is making a ton of money right now. We're making about $42,000 an hour, which is fantastic. And here is our residential area where we added literally everything. We added transportation, we added schools, we added pretty much everything in this area, parks, communications, and everything and whatnot. So we have 4,510 residents currently in our new town district, and they called it Hickory. But for the most part, hey, we needed 5,000 workers and we needed 5,000 employees, and we got it with our massive expansion. Off camera, I did add a college. Want to know why? 2 reasons. One, it fit wonderfully in that spot. And 2, education is the most important thing in Cities Skylines 2. So basically, I didn't want our education to lag behind because, well, like I said 2 seconds ago, education, key to this whole thing. So we did add a college, and I did add a few of the sports stadiums. As you can see here, our transportation system, we have over 3,000 people using the buses, over 3,000 people using the trains. Trams, we have 684 people using it per month. So our transportation system is absolutely phenomenal. So we're very happy with the way this turned out. Please let me know in the comments section, guys. What did you think of this? Did you enjoy this build? Like, I think some of the detailing and fine stuff that happened, just, it turned out great. We're at $4,666, which is absolutely incredible that we were able to get that much money. So we had massive expansion. Please hold tight. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate it.